Paula Drogi, and this is my search for a material soul. Most of the topics I've covered so far focus on the individual: faith, consciousness, self, free will. Even the episodes about meaning allow you to stay comfortably in your own life and consider the way you represent the world to give it value. For the next few episodes, I'm going to broaden the lens and consider the social aspects of a material soul. That is, how religion and religious practice is material. A good place to start thinking about the materiality of religion is evolution. And with evolution, one should start with animals. In the previous video about evil, I said that animals aren't either morally good or morally evil because they're not capable of reflection or reasoning. Only humans can think about their actions and their reasons and evaluate whether they cause harm or are helpful. Nonetheless, animals do harm and help one another in ways that are similar to human actions. In her book, Braintrust, Patricia Churchland discusses the neurophysiological basis for morality and religion, beginning with infant care and social bonding. Her main claim is that caring for others is a modification of the basic system for self-care. All organisms need to maintain homeostasis to stay alive. Even single-celled organisms regulate nutrient intake and energy expenditure to establish an internal equilibrium. Two important features of the brain help explain how self-care systems expand to include others. First, the neurochemical oxytocin rewards social interaction and generates fear and anxiety when separated from offspring. And second, the cognitive capacity to learn about the behavior of others. So first, increased amounts of oxytocin are involved in uterine contractions during childbirth, lactation, and attention to infants. But the biological response is not limited to mothers. Oxytocin production occurs in any person who cares for infants and even in human-dog relationships. Separation from an infant activates the pain system in parents, and reunion releases both oxytocin and endogenous opiates. In other words, the brain evolved to reward care. The second critical brain development in the evolution of social bonding is the ability to understand the behavior of others. Humans are so good at interpreting behavior that we tend to go overboard. Clouds look like faces, and house creaking seems like nefarious invaders. Other animals can also interpret their companion's behavior as angry or friendly. Any social interaction holds the potential for benefit or danger, so the ability to correctly read the situation is adaptively valuable. In the most basic case, an association forms between behaviors such as facial expressions or body movements and positive or negative consequences. Lip smacking means grooming, squawking means aggression. More complicated is theory of mind, the ability to recognize that another animal has thoughts and feelings that are the source of their behavior. There are debates about whether any animals other than humans have a theory of mind, and if so, which ones. Humans develop the capacity when they're about 3 or 4 years old, along with their understanding of deception and the ability to remember their personal past events and imagine specific future events. As I discussed in my video about the development of the self, this capacity for episodic memory is central to the human sense of identity over time. We come to know ourselves at the same time as we come to know the selves of others. I don't think that connection is a coincidence. In addition to the development of a pro-social brain, the evolutionary advantages of group membership reinforce cooperative behavior. Several people working together are able to capture bigger prey than any person alone. The process of hunting, preparing, and sharing food builds bonds of community that tie people together beyond simple kinship lines. Risk and reward are spread out across the group, making it more likely that all will get what they need to survive. People tend to think that Darwinian survival of the fittest competition is inconsistent with moral and religious values such as love and sacrifice. Richard Dawkins' influential book, The Selfish Gene, is partly responsible for that attitude. But even that book recognizes that altruism contributes to genetic reproduction when the cost to one is counterbalanced by the gain for many. Known as kin selection, the principle is that natural selection favors actions that increase the likelihood of any relatives who share similar genes. So even if I don't survive, my niece or third cousin will survive and pass on their genes, including whatever genes motivated my self-sacrificial action. The genetic story doesn't sound particularly moral or religious, and it isn't. The point is to see the roots of moral and religious values in the material world. Altruism is part of nature, not contrary to it. To see how and why human values go beyond kin selection, we need to look at the way human societies developed beyond small groups. Though humans are naturally social, we are also self-interested. This is the free rider problem. People will avoid doing their share of work in a group if they can get away with it. In the university setting, this should be called the group work problem. Small groups solve this problem through the basic mechanism of tit for tat. People who don't do their share won't get help from others when they need it. But for this system to work, you have to know who is doing what in order to punish free riders. Consequently, groups can't grow to a size that would be too big to monitor. As agriculture and trade become more widespread, the incentives for larger and larger groups become greater. Division of labor, wealth accumulation, and military strength all are advantages of the growth in population. At this point, social mechanisms are needed to build trust among members and to punish those who violate that trust. Evolutionary psychologists Ara Naranjayan and colleagues argue that religion served a critical function in creating and enforcing the norms essential for the growth of societies beyond the small groups. One useful feature of religion is an all-knowing God that can keep an eye on everyone all the time. Big gods are evolutionarily valuable to social groups because they perform a surveillance function of ensuring that group members follow social norms. While this sort of evolutionary explanation of religion helps make sense of widespread adoption of religion, I don't like the reduction of religious belief and practice to its one-time adaptive value. It's one thing to consider how religions may have contributed to group solidarity. It's another to suggest that this value is the only or primary reason that people continue to be religious. Rather than try to explain all of religion in adaptive terms, after which religion can be neatly slotted into a branch of science, a better approach is to recognize both the content and the consequences of religion. Generating pro-social behavior is one of the means by which religions affect change. Providing a sense of purpose and an understanding of the transcendental potential of human experience is another profoundly different means by which religion has causal force. In a useful two-part series on the evolution of religion, Brandon Ambrosino gives a similar review of the research on religion's roots. Toward the end of the series, he quotes my favorite theologian, Paul Tillich, who says, "The answers religion has to offer should correspond to the questions that a culture is asking. If it fails at this endeavor, it becomes irrelevant." Religions have provided an essential unifying function in society and have given comforting answers to questions about death, justice, and the meaning of life. The progress of science and the institution of secular legal form have removed the need for religion to serve some of the roles in our culture that it served in the past. In my next video, also a two-part series, I'll consider what sorts of needs remain and whether social structures other than religion might satisfy them. What questions are you asking that are not answered by science and reasoning? What questions in today's culture motivate others to seek answers in religion? Though the number of people who claim to be religious is dropping, the political power of Christianity seems limitless in the Trump administration. What questions does Trump answer? And are those answers productive or destructive?